Honorable Sami and Nkrumah, thank you very much for making the time to speak to Joy FM, Joy News TV, and myjoyonline.com. Now, last week, the Council of Elders of the CPP met the President after they had petitioned the government to release or return their confiscated assets to the party. Now, there were assurances by government that they would look into it. In fact, they say that the Attorney General is looking through the petition to see, to work on it and see how they can start the process of returning the assets back to the party. First of all, tell me, why is it so important for the party to have these assets returned to them? Because as we know, these assets or buildings are being occupied by the state agencies. Are operating from these buildings. So tell us why the CPP is so insistent that government returns its assets to it.
In fact, indeed, this is a very, very important issue for us. And the whole party is united on that. That we must have our assets back. Justice must be done to the CPP. And this process began almost a decade ago. Just like we went to court to get the name CPP back, to be allowed to use the name CPP back, we always knew that the time would come when we would also have to demand our assets. Because these assets came about because ordinary members, and there were about 1 million in the mid-60s, 1 million CPP members. Ordinary members contributed out of their salaries, out of their little monies, contributed funds for the party to have assets. And these were what? We are talking about regional offices, the headquarters. The headquarters of the CPP in Accra was the Ministry of Information building today.
Right.
The Greater Accra Regional Office of the CPP was the headquarters of the fire service.
Oh, interesting.
So there are buildings all over the country that ordinary Ghanaians contributed to make them happen.
Okay.
They are not state, this is not state funds.
I was coming to that because there's this perception that once the CPP was the governing party at the time, these assets belong to the state. But you make the distinction that that is not so.
Not so at all. And they are living members. They are today people like Madame Lucy Anin, one of the first women parliamentarians, who would tell you, would testify to how they used to contribute on a monthly basis for the CPP to have these offices all across the country. They are not state funds. State money was used to establish the state enterprises and the dozens of factories to build up Ghana's manufacturing capability or base. But these were contributions by ordinary members. There are even members today who would tell you that the great-grandfathers, the parents, the uncles, sometimes donated buildings to the CPP, as is the case of the Ashanti, the former Ashanti Regional Office of the CPP. It was on a donation from one of our members, his great uncle.
And that office is now being used as a regional education office.
That's right. Most of these buildings today were used and occupied by the state, and that has been the case for decades. Okay. So the CPP would have petitioned any government. The plan was on, and it's actually begun before I came on the scene. It's begun in the early 2000. Right. I believe it's begun with the national reconciliation process. Right. But this time, I have used the opportunity of being the chairman of the CPP to take a very active step, a very serious step, together with the help of our legal and constitutional committee headed by Comrade Right Equity. We have all united in our determination to get the assets back. The CPP youth have picketed in February on the anniversary of the illegal overthrow of the Kwame Nkrumah government. The Council of Elders are doing their bit, and as I mentioned earlier, the Legal and Constitution Committee have been helping us with this, and you can see that we have started petitioning from June 2012.
Okay, so there's been an intensified effort to get government to return the assets.
Absolutely.
Can you put a number to the number of, an estimate? Give us an estimate of the number of buildings that you are requiring government to return.
Dozens and dozens. Even we will have to do some research to find out exactly how many. But you just imagine, in every region you will find at least 4 or 5 buildings. Some small, some big. That today are occupied by the district educational offices, Ghana Revenue Service, Metro Education Office. So they are dozens and dozens, and we are saying justice must be done. The CPP will never betray the people of Ghana. We want to have a bigger voice in the affairs of in running the affairs of this country, and this is simply part of our quest for justice. Justice for the members of the CPP and justice for the people of Ghana. And we would have petitioned any government. We would petition an NDC government, an NPP government, and even a CPP government. The party would have taken this step so that we don't see it as a favor or charity from anyone. These are our rightfully owned properties that must be returned to the rightful owners.
Right, so you talk about justice for the party, which is fair, but what about justice for the country? Because as we speak, a lot of these, or most of these properties which are owned by the CPP are now being occupied by the state agencies. So there are state agencies there which are operating from these offices. If they are kicked out, and given that given the problem that we have in this country about the lack of infrastructural and facilities for such state agencies, how do you feel that will pan out? I mean, the argument by some is that it's fair for the CPP to be demanding justice and the return of their assets, but these assets are now being occupied by state agencies. Is it fair to throw them out?
The matter, as you heard, has now been referred to the Attorney General. The first step is to recognize that these are Ghanaian, ordinary Ghanaians' properties. That has to be recognized. It's very similar to the arguments for reparations. The number one thing is to recognize that an injustice has been done and has been perpetuated. We are in a democratic dispensation, and democracy demands that nobody whose assets have been confiscated should remain forever marginalized, or it should not remain forever a closed chapter, as if it never happened, as if no one has suffered. We need to recognize that something has happened and it has adversely affected a big number of people.
Clearly that recognition has been made by the president, who says that who has assured the party that they will return the assets, especially since the Attorney General is
the matter is with the Attorney General. So we don't know what the Attorney General would say, but we want that first recognition. Number two, we will have to sit down and see what kind of let's say compensation we are talking about. We are just wanting the country to understand that an injustice has been done the CPP. So it's not just the criminalization of Kwame Nkrumah in even some of our school books till today, which talk about Kwame Nkrumah as a dictator, Kwame Nkrumah but it is also that there's an injustice that has been done to the party he led.
Now, if the state is unable to return the assets to the party, will the party be willing to receive compensation in lieu of the assets?
I cannot speak now on behalf of this matter is now with our Legal and Constitutional Committee, you see, and we all wait to be advised. But we want that initial recognition. It is very important for us. You know, people tell you, why is the CPP weak? Why is the CPP not in power? There's so much goodwill for the CPP, and so there are historical reasons for why the CPP is fragmented.
And you
for
think
why
that
the
part
CPP
of this is because you don't have the assets that were confiscated by previous governments?
I think part of it is people do not understand how much CPP members have suffered. They've been banished, they've been exiled, and their assets confiscated, assets which they paid for with their sweat, with their blood. And this has to be recognized.
Tell me, how will the return of the assets change the CPP? How will it change the CPP?
The CPP is already on the move and changing. You know, we are finding our voice. That is why we are being very, very vocal with our criticism of the imposition of genetically modified foods, or GMOs, in Ghana. That is why we've spoken out loudly against the IMF bailouts. That is why we also spoke out against the economic partnership agreements with Europe, because we are saying we are here, the CPP exists to make sure that Ghana becomes a productive country. A country where domestic production is prioritized. This is the only way we are going to improve our balance of payments in the long run. And if the voice of the CPP is not heard, it will be very difficult to understand and take seriously what we are saying. You know, everybody say, oh, this small party, they don't make an impact in elections. But that is because our voice is not heard sufficiently, and we are changing that. Whether we have our assets today or not, we are on the move, and we are going to speak out louder and louder, and nothing, no condition, no circumstances will make us betray the trust of the people, or will make us compromise on our principles, to speak out the truth, to criticize any government for any shortcoming that we feel it's happening on their part. So nothing will silence us or will compromise our principles. We are used to sacrificing after all, but justice must be done. For the sake of peace, national reconciliation, and maintaining this democratic dispensation, justice must be done to the CPP. All the details will be ironed out together with our legal committee, the AG. The AG, I think, will decide and will communicate in due course.
Okay. Tell me, does the CPP have a plan for the use of these assets, if indeed it is returned to them?
Indeed, we are in the process of drafting one. What we know for sure is that we will put them to good use, particularly for the youth and women of this country. We have a lot of ideas, very constructive ideas.
Such as what?
We will put them to good use. Employment, creating employment, income generating, enterprises. As I said, our mission is to make Ghana a productive country, to revive the thousands, the hundreds of manufacturing plants that Kwame Nkrumah has established in this country, which are now dormant.
I understand that's a bigger plan.
So I'm talking about
in relation to these assets.
Yes, we have a lot of ideas, employment generating ideas for the youth and women. We are determined to make good use of these properties once they are returned to the rightful owners.
I'm still curious. You say employment generation for women and the youth. How are you going to do that using these assets?
There are many ways of doing that. There are microcredit facilities, there are little enterprises to teach or to help our women to store methods of storing food. light, small processing. There's so much we can do. I don't want to run ahead of my party. Yes, because we have committees, that we have welfare committee, we have finance committee, and as I said, we have the legal and constitutional committee, which really will be in charge of these negotiations, if you will. The important thing, as I said, is the recognition. The whole party is united around this issue, and that is a very good thing. Our youth have done their part and are still doing it. Our council of elders are doing their bit, and our legal committee is of course carrying us in this matter. We will continue with this struggle, because we will continue until there's a successful conclusion. Whichever government is in power, we will definitely continue pursuing this petition.
Very well. Away from the talk of your assets, now we've heard some of the other parties preparing to go to Congress to elect regional and national executives. The MPP has started theirs, the PNC and the process, and the NDC is likely to start its own soon. What about the CPP? We have not heard. We've heard very little concerning, elections of executives for the party.
Oh no, we are doing our constituency elections. By end of June we would have finished our regional elections, and then we would have, before that we would name a date for our national officers congress and our flag bearers congress. So we hope to do that soon, God willing, in the next few months. So yes, but you will hear about the dates for our national executives and flag bearers congress around May or June. Yes, so we are on course. We are on course in every respect. We want to be in a position to serve the people of Ghana very well. And
finally, very finally, there's been talk of a successor for the Electoral Commission boss, who is due for retirement in June. Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan has been manning the Electoral Commission for several decades, but he's due to step down. Several names have popped up, and in recent times, some of the political parties have had cause to, petition the government about consulting them in the selection of a new EC boss. Yes. What's your own position on this?
Like the other parties, because we are in talks with the other parties. In fact, as I speak now, I'm due to be at an IE meeting any minutes from now with the chairman of the other political parties. And we are putting a lot of emphasis on calling for wide consultations. This is a very, very important post for us, for our democracy. We want the people of Ghana to have full faith and confidence.
But is that not why the Constitution mandates the President to consult with the Council of State for advice?
But it must go beyond that, because the Council of State are appointed by the President. It must go beyond that. And the person who we will ultimately choose must be of the highest integrity. This is one of the things that would make sure that our people will have faith in our democracy, and that our democracy will deliver. Because frankly, even though we have peace and political stability over the last 20-odd years, but our democracy is not delivering sufficiently. So it means we need to invest more in our democracy, and we need to invest more in the EC. We cannot have a situation where the Electoral Commission will say that they are short of funds. In 2012, unlike in 2008, the EC did not have sufficient funds to employ teachers as returning officers. The EC did not have funds to give out pickups to political parties as they did in 2008. Now this compromises democracy, particularly smaller parties. So we are very passionate, we are very insistent that this process the process of the selection of the Electoral Commission must be subjected to wider consultation. The Electoral Commissioner must be seen to be impartial, to be of the highest integrity, and the manner in which they are selected plays a big role or reflects that, you know, the independence of the
But there's those
EC.
who argue that some 20 odd years ago, when Dr. Farijan was appointed by President Rawlings, Chairman Rawlings at the time, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings at the time, there was no argument, and he's, you know, carried himself off very well, leading the EC and, you know, helping us through several elections.
Indeed, even two peaceful transfers of power from one political party to another, that is indeed is commendable. We are happy about that. But in 2012, we were not happy about a few things. As I said, we want teachers to be manning our elections. We want to go back to being in the position that is the EC, to employ teachers, well qualified teachers to man the process, definitely. So we are not happy about a few things that happened in 2012, and we want the full confidence of our people in the EC to be restored. So this is something we are going to be very vocal about.
Very well. So several names have popped up. Even Justice Jonathan, who sat on the election petition, and also and Dr. Emmanuel, among others. Several names have popped up. Who would the CPP be comfortable with in manning the Electoral Commission?
I don't want to talk about specific names now, because we are in the process of discussing all that. But it's not so much the names. As I said, wide consultation will build a consensus around that.
But eventually they have to point it down to one name.
Absolutely.
And so the CPP has preferences.
No, we have no preferences. What we want is someone of the highest integrity, unquestionable integrity. This is the number one. This is the. There are a lot of competent people in Ghana. We have I cannot name names now, because we have to see who are the names that are actually going to be formally submitted. And definitely once that happens, then there will be a process of somehow elimination, you know. But so let us see the serious proposals that come out before we can give any indication. But we will do that in consultation with the other political parties, in consultation with civil society and institutions of the state. We want the widest possible consultation. This is of utmost importance for Ghana, I think. Utmost importance. 2016 will be the 50th anniversary of the illegal overthrow of the Kwame Nkrumah government, and we want to see it as, you know, a year when democracy will flourish, when the Ghanaian will feel that yes, we cast our votes and we can see that the outcome reflects our real intent, our real desires. It's a very important year for us in the CPP, and we want to make our contribution to democracy and to development in Ghana.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Samia. Thank you for your time. So.